What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sophisticated Man. Obviously, you know who I am. I have another special guest today, Mr. Manuel at the Holistic Manhood. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you very much for inviting me over, brother. Pleasure to be here today. I'd like to quickly introduce myself. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. As Tino said, my name is Manuel. I run the Instagram page Holistic Manhood. I am from Austria, 24 years old. I'm a men's coach myself, and today we're going to have a nice discussion, I believe. Really looking forward to it. So let's keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you on because I feel like me and Manuel, if in case you guys don't follow the both of us, I'm not sure who you guys kind of gravitate towards more. But we have very similar content and we have a very similar message, I think, when it comes to masculinity and what men are all about. So that's one of the reasons I was curious to get you on here and get your take on that. Just things involving men and things involving, being a man, being masculine. And maybe we could start out the whole podcast that way as well. Being a creator, being in the space for a while. I think you told me the other day you've been doing this for a couple years, right?
Yeah, I've been doing it for roughly 2 years now.
Roughly 2 years.
hmm
So yeah, in your perspective, where do you think we are in this space in the terms of like a consumer and also a content creator, like masculinity as a whole? Where do you think guys are right now in terms of, the state of men, I should say?
So I would say we are in a very early stage in the niche.
Mm,
Like speaking of it, you sure, and I'm pretty sure most of people know that cycle, which goes from hard times create
yep.
strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Hmm.
And we are basically in weak men create hard times right now.
Yeah.
So the majority of men are weak, are effeminate, and you can see it in society. You can see it in how things go, the power games that are happening in society. You can really tell that this is the result of weak men.
Hmm.
And creators like me and Tony and other creators in the niche, we are at the very beginning of everything. And I believe that in a few years, things will change, things will shift into the positive,
Hmm.
and we will see the change. Like we will be there when the change is happening.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a very interesting take. I definitely agree. I think we're definitely in the phase of like things are very comfortable right now, so that creates a lot of guys who are not equipped, they're not capable, they're not responsible, they feel undisciplined, and then those guys get into power, those guys create some type of authority, and that kind of messes everything up. So I agree. I think that we're definitely in that phase of, manhood as a whole. Um, you talked a little bit about society. You talked a little bit about just like the pressures from where we're at, just culture wise. What are some other things that you see that you think got us to this point? Like what was the thing, or maybe a couple things that you feel made men kind of get to this stage?
There's a lot of things.
Hmm.
First of all, it starts with the education system in school.
Yeah.
The majority of teachers are female. The majority of influence is feminine influence. There are many, many, many single mother households. There is a lack of male authority and male role models for young men. Then we have things like the image of Disney love or Bollywood and stuff like that. So, an
Hmm.
image of codependent love, which gets preached and praised and is everywhere. Like you see it everywhere. You see it in the movies, you see it on the television, you see
Yep.
it in the majority even of songs, like people like Bruno Mars and stuff like that. It's the same story and it keeps repeating. And of course, things you constantly hear, you start to believe, right?
Hmm.
And then we have, of course, porn, strong issue there. And that all is just um, reinforced by social media. You know, you have that simping behavior, you have that porn, you have the Disney love, and that all comes together with women, men simping for women, and women are noticing it, and women are using social media for male attention, and that's everything plays into it, and that makes a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's um a lot of the things that you mentioned I definitely can see, and some of them I've even experienced on my own, like with the porn stuff, with just like, not kind of being disciplined, having my stuff not in order. Um I think a lot of that can lead to guys being very jumbled and not being focused, not being intentional with their time. I talk about that a lot, like having a purpose for the things that you do and having a reason for it. Um, I wanted to highlight one of the things that you mentioned because I think this is something that guys get a little bit confused about. Maybe there's a lot of ways that people define simping. So I wanted to get your take on that because I think a lot of times I've seen guys say it's simping to even like show appreciation to a girl or care for a woman, be compassionate. And I think that it can lead to a lot of like negative toxic behavior, I believe, around women and around like intersexual dynamics in particular. So in your definition or your point of view, like what does it really mean to be a simp?
Great point you brought up. Some people who may who followed me for a time may know that I come from the red pill niche, and I've now shifted towards. Everybody knows that in the red pill niche they weaponize the word simping, as you said. They
Hmm.
confuse simping with being with tenderness, showing appreciation, love her. That has nothing to do with simping. Simping, in my terms, is giving a woman unearned attention, especially with the intention of getting sexual. That is
Hmm.
simping.
Mm. I like that definition. I kind of see it in the same way too. Like in my opinion, it's like simping is really when you're giving everything and you're getting nothing in return. So like everything, all relationships are a value exchange, right? Like you give value, I get value, you give value, but you don't go into anything. This is kind of a caveat, expecting anything in return. But as a man and as just as an individual, as a person, you should get reciprocated some type of value, whether that's good compassion, good energy, positivity, whatever that is. And a guy who's giving all of his attention, giving all of his energy, giving all of his resources and his time to a woman who's not giving anything back to him, and he continues to put himself in that situation knowing that's what's happening. To me, that's simping because he's getting nothing out of it. She's getting everything. And it's kind of
Absolutely.
like self-sabotage.
Mm. That's also something which I mentioned before. Of course, is happening because of the current definition of love people have. Like as you
Hmm.
said, we as men are very sacrificial, and that's why so many men
Yep.
are um, leaning towards white knighting and simping. They just want to give and give and give, but they don't receive back, which is crucial, which is codependency. Basically, somebody is the giver and somebody is the taker, and it's a imbalance. Like the one who is constantly giving doesn't receive it back, and that's crucial. That's crucial for any interpersonal relationship, not just romantic relationships. Like you either have assets or you have liabilities, and it
Right.
doesn't matter in which relationship, whether business, romantic, friendships, it doesn't matter.
Hmm. No, totally. And I think that's where a lot of guys get tripped up is they think it's negative to think that way, but in the reality is everyone does this unconsciously. I mean, if look at your friend group right now, you gave a great example. If your friends are always negative and they're dragging you down, they're doing toxic behaviors, that you're not getting any value from them, do you really want to hang out with those people? It's the same type of thing. So as long as you're giving good energy, good value to people, and you're getting the same reciprocation in return, that's a good, healthy relationship. And it could be romantic, friendship, like Manuel said, it could be anything. So that's very, very important to look for. And one thing that came up to me as you were saying that too is to even take it a step further. Some guys where they look for that thing in return, some guys actually end up playing the nice guy. I guess is where nice guys come in because they try to do that and they try to be extra nice, extra polite, a little bit too accommodating just so they can get something in return. And that comes from a very needy, very self like fulfilling type of place, which is not what we're talking about. A totally different kind of thing.
Interesting that you said that because I would like to talk quickly about more not nice guys, but more about people pleasing because I actually
Yeah.
was writing that chapter in my current book,
Hmm.
and it's basically like you said, nice guys are not nice guys. Actually, it's manipulation. Same similar to
Yeah.
people pleasers, right? They are not doing it because they are selfless. They are doing it because they are selfish, actually.
Mm,
Because when you think about it, why are they doing it? People pleasers are people pleasers because they look for outside approval. They fear abandonment. They want other people to like them.
mm,
And that's not virtuous. And it's the same with nice guy. The nice guy is just being the nice guy because he wants to get laid, because he hopes he ends up in the sheets with her. He's not
hmm.
being nice. Like, let's say nice is so like negative in our niche. And
Yeah.
that's why you often say it's not nice, it's being kind. But
Hmm.
being, let's say, being kind, you should be kind without expecting a return and
Yeah.
not just because you want to get her in the sheets.
Hmm.
And of course, you should only be nice or kind if it's reciprocated. Like if she's using you, or if other people, if other men are being a dick to you, what are you nice for, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like giving without expectation. And I think you said something that really I think is the very pinpointed key of this whole thing is I think when you're doing it for the expectation, you're operating from fear, and you're
Absolutely.
fearful that that person will leave you, or you're going to mess something up. They're not going to like you. And anytime you're operating from fear, that's when you get into trouble because it's going to lead to maybe a negative relationship. You're going to get used. That's how guys end up getting manipulated because they're so afraid of losing this girl or losing this person that that's exactly what ends up happening because you're focused on that so much. So I think the big difference is um just not being afraid to lose people. And I know that sounds morbid. It sounds a little weird that that you shouldn't be attached to just any kind of relationship. But it really, I think, is the best approach, the best mindset to have because you're not really you're not too tied to what happens. You're kind of just giving without expectation, giving without anything in return. And if the other person doesn't reciprocate or they don't like you, they're not giving any value at all, you can walk away from that person and not have any animosity and not have any negative things to say about them. It's just I think it's just about valuing yourself a lot more than the value you receive from others as well.
Absolutely. I think you said it's considered weird to not be attached to any kind of relationship, but let's be honest, isn't that weird that it's
It
considered weird?
definitely is.
Like
For
men
sure.
have, or generally people have to start thinking about any relationship as an exchange of value.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've said it multiple times. Like if you don't receive anything back, if you're the only giver in a relationship, what are you being in that relationship for?
Hmm.
Somebody's using you then, and that's what people need to learn.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the reason I say that is because I believe that is part of kind of like the conditioning that we were talking about. It's like we're taught at a young age to, just go after your princess, give her everything, like let her be your queen and like treat her amazing and like just give up your own ambitions and your own stuff. Like you don't matter, she matters or whatever. So we're
Happy
taught
wife,
that.
happy life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Happy wife, happy life. That's what we're conditioned at a very, very young age. And I remember even talking to married guys, having different conversations. Every guy says the same thing to me. He's like, "Oh, she's the boss. She takes care of everything.
Hmm.
Like, she's good." Like, I used to work at a men's clothing store, about a couple years ago, and I'd married couples walk in, and the guy would come in looking for a suit, and he would completely deflect everything. He'd be like, "Yeah, whatever she wants, let her pick it out." And I'm thinking, dude, it's your suit. Like you're gonna let your wife pick out your own clothes. It's like it's just some of that kind of stuff it just boggles my mind because guys they have no type of just authority over their own life. And that bothers me, I think, just like seeing that, especially in guys that are a little bit older than me.
Funny that you said that. Did you heard of the mother-son relationship dynamic? I'm sure you heard of it if you dig into relationship dynamics. Like
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
different dynamics. There's father daughter or
Mm,
mother son or narcissist white knight. Those are different
mm,
dynamics, and so
mm,
many men are having that mother son type of relationship in their romantic relationship. Like as you
mm,
said, like she's doing everything for him. He's
right.
just giving away his power, giving away his authority. Lets her do the decisions. And the thing is, like they think that this is what both of them want, but the
Right.
reality shows differently, right?
Hmm.
Because those are the people that often are unhappy in the relationship or end up with divorce.
Mm.
What is it in? How is it pronounced? Probably in English.
Like divorce.
Divorce. Right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Like the mother-son relationship. I've seen that a lot. And guys will say, not even guys, women will say too. She's like, "Oh, I mom him all the time, and like I take care of him, this and that." And that's also, I think, another distinction that I want guys to understand is there's a big difference from being feminine, being nurturing and caring for you, and there's a big difference between that and being your mother and taking care of you, as in you don't have your shit together. She's like tying your shoelaces. She's helping you out. She's helping you get a job. Like big things like that. There's a big difference between that, um, and actually being nurturing and being a good caretaker. So maybe we could touch on that for a second. Is like what do you think causes that type of dynamic in a relationship where guys maybe not even intentionally look for a mother figure, but that's what ends up happening, I think, in the dynamic.
Great question. That could be two reasons, I'd say, primarily. The
Mm,
first is always a dysfunctional relationship to their parents, especially to their mothers.
right.
We refer it to as the mother wound, right?
Mm,
The guy, the man, is subconsciously looking for a mother figure for whatever reason, primarily trauma,
mm,
or how do I put that? He's looking for an escape. He's looking for an escape because he's overwhelmed with all the responsibilities he has to bear. And then he's just looking for somebody else to basically as an emotional pillow, right? He's overwhelmed and he's not secure in himself. And that's why he's looking for somebody to bear that burden for him. And that ends up in a mother and son relationship dynamic.
mm. That's a really good point. It's like he's giving up all that responsibility because he doesn't feel like he has any in his life, or he kind of loses that sense of confidence, that sense of self-worth, and maybe that carries over into the relationship, and she kind of takes on that role. Guys do that too, where she ends up being like your mom, your therapist, somebody to take care of you and coddle you. And I've been in an experience where well, I haven't personally been in it, but I've talked to a friend who's been in that exact type of dynamic where her boyfriend at the time was um I'm not sure if he was really successful, but she was taking on that mother role where he was like kind of down bad. He was not really looking for jobs. He was kind of lazy, playing video games, like just kind of slobbing around. And she would have to remind him all the time, like, hey, like get your stuff together, like make sure you're applying to jobs today, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. And like just kind of like being his mother, being that mother goose all the time, trying to make sure he's put together. And from her perspective, I was asking her, I said, well, is that actually like, do you like that? Like, is that actually attractive to you that you treat your man like that? And she was like, no. She's like, I'm actually exhausted having to do this for him because I just wish he would do it himself. I don't have to explain it. And I was just like, I'm not surprised you feel that way because he's clearly not in his masculine at all. He's like very much um either he's in a wounded masculine or he's in his feminine. He's not coming from a good place. And yeah, in a woman's perspective, and she was, she's a very successful woman herself. She has a photography business. She's very ambitious. She's doing her own thing too. So to see her do all these things and her man not do anything and kind of have to be like that chain that she's pulling, that really can screw up a relationship dynamic.
And it's honestly just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Like she will not be able to sustain it forever.
Mhm.
It is just a matter,
No.
it's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because my girlfriend actually came out of the same relationship dynamic.
Mm,
And guess why it ended? Because she was sick and tired of him being a lazy guy without ambition
yeah.
who's just passive, you know? And
Mhm.
passivity is the most feminine trait a man can possess.
Yep.
Like you're not supposed to do nothing. You're not supposed to be passive. You're not supposed to be the receiving end in the relationship. Like men are provider, men are the giving part of the relationship, more or
Hmm.
less. Not to confuse with what we just explained with codependency,
Hmm.
but still, masculinity is giving and femininity is receiving. And
Hmm.
if that guy is just passive in the relationship, it is an attraction killer. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of time.
Yeah. No, it's 100% a polarity killer. And if you guys never read the book, I reference this book a lot in my videos, but The Way of the Superior Man,
Mm.
it talks about that polarity, about how there needs to be a masculine pole, there needs to be a feminine pole in every relationship. And regardless of what that looks like, because I've seen I've seen couples that flip the roles. Guys are feminine, the woman is more masculine, which it works as long as there's polarity. But I think the best case scenario and the majority for most couples is the men are masculine, the women are in the feminine pole. And all that simply means is the masculine is the leader. They're the ones that kind of lead the relationship. They're dictating kind of the direction of where everybody's going. They're making the moves. They're deciding, hey, this is what we're going to do as a family unit. Maybe we want kids. Maybe we're moving here. Like that's kind of the at the end of the day, he makes the final say. And the woman's more the caretaker, the nurturer. She's being loving, she's caring, she's um, kind of being that guy's peace almost and kind of like letting him like lay his sword down for a second and feel like he's comfortable. Um, and I think sometimes what happens is guys fall into that other pole. They get too feminine, like you were saying. They get passive. They're not maybe as ambitious. They don't feel confident. They don't have anything going on. In your opinion, how do you see guys dropping to their feminine? Like how, like I guess what have you seen in terms of guys being a little bit too feminine? Like how does that happen and how does that look even?
How does it happen? It happens when the man gets too comfortable in the relationship. That's
Mm,
typically the pattern. You get
mm,
into a relationship, and I'm talking about not very, let's say, honestly, we have to say not very well developed men,
yeah.
because a well developed man will stay on his grind, etc., in a relationship. But the reality is that many men just get comfortable as soon as they get into a relationship, and they give up everything because they believe they got the prize, right? They are in a relationship. So they think to themselves, hey, I got what I wanted. so I can stop working now.
Mm,
And it's always, it happens when you stop putting in the effort, stops doing masculine things. If
mm-hmm,
you stop pursuing your purpose, if you stop working out and you start being like watching Netflix all day long and you stop hanging with the boys because you want to spend time with her, it makes you feminine. You need
mm-hmm,
to stay on your purpose, on your grind. You need to keep doing what you did before you got into that relationship. If not, it will better you.
mm-hmm.
It will happen. And that's how it happens. And how do you see it in a relationship? That men turn into clingy, needy beta males, basically.
Yeah.
And then they fall into that codependent relationship. Then they are in scarcity. Then they are clingy. Then they are afraid to lose her. And then the power dynamic shifts. And then it's only a matter of time until the relationship ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've literally been in that situation before, and I've talked about it a little bit on my channel. That happens, and it's very easy to happen if you're not careful, because you could be confident right now, you could be going to the gym, you could be very purposeful with your day, your decisions, your life. Um, but as soon as a pretty girl comes into your life, can you maintain that? And can you stay up on that to keep her around? Because it's like the saying goes, you want to still be the man that you were when you attracted her throughout the course of the relationship. Because if that ever changes, she's gonna lose trust in your leadership. She's gonna lose trust in your ability to be a masculine figure in her life because you're not being consistent. You're losing that consistency of maybe you were more confident, um maybe you were more decisive when you met her, maybe you had more things going on. If you drop all those things, she's gonna have to, just by nature, forced to be in her masculine a little bit more to compensate for your lack of masculinity, which is bad because she does not want to be there. And it just, yeah, it leads to a lot of bad things in the relationship. And you find the guys get lazy, and that's when they say, oh, women start nagging them, they start bitching, they start complaining. And then they blame the women, but the reality is, look at your actions. Are you still maintaining that confident, strong, capable guy that you were when you met her? Because a lot of the times that diminishes. That's what causes her to even act out that way, because she's looking for that masculine.
Absolutely. Crucial things you said. Like, I want to repeat that because it's very important. So, as you said, it happens automatically, right?
Yeah.
When you are in your feminine, it automatically forces her into her masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's nature. That happens. If you're being feminine, there's we talked about this yesterday. There's a spectrum of femininity and masculinity, and it has to be balanced. And when
Right.
you're shifting into your feminine, she has to compensate by going into her masculine. If you're neglecting your responsibility, she has to compensate for it. And the same goes for her. If she starts forcing, like, she can be masculine, and if you don't correct that, you will be put in your feminine.
Yep.
And the other thing you said, it is the man's responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If your girl starts nagging, starts being disrespectful, because let's not even say disrespectful, let's say not, or starting to neglecting or not respecting your authority, that is your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Your fault only. Because why do see she starts not believing in your leadership because your behavior said, hey, I am not a capable leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happens. It's not her. And I always say this: men are the fault. Men
Yeah.
are responsible for everything that happens in society.
Mm-hmm.
It's our fault that women are like they are right now in modern Western society. Why? Because we are rewarding that behavior.
Yep.
It's our fault. It's not women. Like, I have this argument with men all the time. Oh, they're 3 4 O's, and I'm not sure if you can swear there, so I'll just say 3 4 O's. Everybody should know what that
No, you're
means.
good.
But men say you can't date them. It's impossible. They're no good women. Yeah, but
Yep.
it's our fault. You can change
Mm-hmm.
it, and it's your
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to. to change it.
Yep. I'm actually really glad you bring this up because that's definitely something I wanted to touch on in the podcast was how if men are the leaders, right? Like you're saying, if men are the leaders, we kind of shape how things go. We go first. If we are rewarding bad behavior, like girls sleeping around, being promiscuous, OnlyFans, all this kind of stuff, that's a problem. And I think we all can agree that is a problem in society. If we are giving attention to that, or if we're giving sex to women that do things like this, and we're giving them all this validation, what reason do they have to stop? You know, because if it's like I use the analogy in one of my last videos, it's like a dog. Not that I'm saying women are dogs, but the analogy is like if a dog pees in the house, whose fault is that? Is that the dog's fault or is that the owner's fault for letting it happen? And when it does happen, do you punish the dog or not punish it, but
Discipline it.
do you discipline it? Right. Do you take care of the situation and make sure it doesn't happen again? Or do you do you give your dog a treat and pat it on the head, say, "Oh, it's okay, boy, don't worry." It's gonna keep happening because the dog thinks, "Well, shit, I peed in the house, I got a treat. I'm rewarded for this behavior." And like the same thing applies to women that sleep around and they're being hoes, being promiscuous or whatever you want to call them. We allow that. And I remember I was literally just watching a video yesterday. This guy was young. He was like in his 20s. I forget his name exactly, but he was on this podcast and he was saying that too because he was saying, "Oh, women they sleep around, whatever." And he said that's an excuse to just be a hoe too. Give them what they already have. He's like, "What's the problem? They're already doing it. Um, what's wrong with just smashing them and being a hoe myself?" And like as the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking because I met guys that said that before to me in person. They're like, "Oh, all these girls are hoes, blah blah blah," but then they're smashing 4 or 5 girls at a time and not caring about their discipline sexually at all either. But it's like we're just creating more and more hoes. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what happens because we're giving them what they want.
Glad that you said that, honestly, because I was posting about it a few times the past couple of days, and you can't imagine this shitstorm I got for it.
Oh yeah.
People trying to prove me otherwise, because I was saying, like, if you're red pill and if you've been played, if you're sleeping around as a man, you cannot expect a woman to be pure, let's say. Like the people in the red pill community who sleep around are the same people that preach a low body count in women. Like,
Mhm.
how does that work?
Yeah.
How it doesn't make any sense. You are
Right.
literally creating those women with a high body count and you're
Yeah.
shaming them for it.
Yeah.
So that's a double standard we use, or let's not say we, because we're not in the red pill community.
Right.
So the red pill community uses, but it doesn't make any sense. And I always say, if you sleep around, if you engage into casual sex, you are part of the problem. And that's the
Hmm.
truth.
Yeah. That is the hard truth that I don't think enough guys are willing to admit. Um, I think that that's literally like the only answer to the solution is like if you want less casual sex and you want less people being like that, hookup culture, you want less of that. Stop doing it. And I think for some reason that gets so like even saying that people like ban you or they'll say some stupid stuff like, "Oh, you're a simp, you're a beta, you're a cuck, whatever," because I don't believe in that. But the reality is, okay, so I'm choosing to be the person that I want to attract. And I'm a big believer in the energy that you give out is the energy that you're inviting into your life as well. So if I'm being disciplined, if I'm being, celibate, if I'm not in a relationship, or if I'm being very intentional with the people that I hang out with, mainly women, right? Then I'm only going to attract women that are also disciplined, that also don't sleep around, that also are, um, staying pure for the guy that they do eventually meet. If I'm doing that, I'm only going to attract women like that as well. But on the flip side, if I'm still sleeping around, if I'm being a hoe, if I'm going to the clubs, if I'm drinking every night, well, don't be surprised if you end up with a girl who's doing that exact same thing. And I feel like that is a point that a lot of guys in the red pill miss They talk about like women with low body counts, like you mentioned. They talk about women not being promiscuous, but then they literally go right back and say, well, I'll go out, I'll do what I want because I'm a man. I can do whatever I want. And that to me, it's I have a point of contention with that because it's like you want the responsibilities without any of the or no, you want all of the benefits without any of the responsibilities that come with it. So you can't I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too, is what I'm saying. And yeah, I think that's a point that a lot of guys in that space do miss.
Absolutely. I always say you attract what you are, and you
Yeah.
know that because I
Yep.
believe what you just said. We both believe in the law of attraction and
Mhm.
shit. Well, what does this say about you?
Yeah. 100%. I it's funny that we're talking about the red pill now because maybe we can kind of dive into that a little bit just because we're on that subject. Because you've been in the red pill before, you said you've kind of had that lifestyle for a little bit.
Tino, just a second. You just had a massive lag. Could you repeat yourself, please?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, I'm it's funny that we're talking about the red pill right now because I think that's a nice little transition that we can maybe get into as well. Because we were talking about this the other day. There seems to be a massive rise in men's content, which is a good thing. I think ultimately, if you are in the red pill, you follow that advice, you're into the other kind of stuff out there, that's good. At least we're starting to become more prevalent, more popular, it seems like in culture, which is a very, very good thing. However, there are some groups I think that promote things that are just going to be negative. They're going to lead down a path of maybe not feeling fulfilled or competent. You're not going to feel happy as a man. Mainly, a lot of the things in the red pill community are, I think, things that can really screw guys up mentally. Granted, I do think there's a lot of good things in there as well. I'm not going to trash the community as a whole and say it's terrible. You're not going to learn anything. You definitely can. Um, I've definitely learned a lot from that community myself, but I've never been like as deep in it as some guys have been. So I'm just wondering from your perspective, having been in it, having been, been exposed to that kind of lifestyle for a while, what was it like for you? And what did you take away from the community and just kind of the whole ideology behind the red pill?
The thing is, there is a big problem when you get into the red pill community.
Hmm.
The red pill teaches a lot of things that which I agree with, which are correct, which I like, which are good, which
Mm.
have positive influence on men. But you have to ask yourself at what price? Because what I see, what I've experienced, and so many men have been reaching out because of it,
Hmm.
the negatives just outweigh the positives. Like
Yeah.
it's all great. You learn a lot about female nature. You learn good stuff like, hey, prioritize your purpose, don't accept disrespect, all that good shit, right? But also a
Hmm.
lot of negative shit like all women cheat, you have to spin plates,
Yeah.
and all that degenerate shit. And the
Hmm.
problem is, the main problem what happens with guys, they get their heart broken. They're at a very vulnerable and dangerous position. And then they
Yep.
find the red pill. And then they come across to which are affirmations. All women cheat, all women are hoes. And then they internalize it. And this fucks them up. This then leads to emotional dullness. They cannot build emotional, meaningful relationships to women. They start hating on women and all that type of shit. And that really leaves them dissatisfied and dull, and can even lead into deeper depression.
Mm.
Because you can't imagine, I have more people reaching out to me about the damage of the red pill than men who say, yeah, it was great, no damage, great
Hmm.
time, we'll stay with it, we'll continue to spin blades. No, it is men who say, hey, listen, I am fucked up. I can't build a meaningful relationship with a woman anymore because I have those red pill beliefs so deeply inside.
Mm.
And it was the same for me. Like I got into a relationship when I was still very red pilled. And if my girlfriend didn't have the patience and didn't love me that much, like that relationship would be over because you are simply acting the wrong way. You are the red pill. When it comes to dating philosophy, the red pill is a lot of objectifying women and manipulating them and seeing them as the enemy. Like as soon as she doesn't
Yeah.
comply at every single little thing, she's trying to beta-tize you. Oh, she doesn't
Hmm.
give you sex on demand every time you want to. Oh, she's beta-tizing you, cut her off. Oh,
Hmm.
she's not having the same opinion as you, cut her off. Like that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely seen that a lot in the content that I've consumed in terms of red because I've never really watched a lot of red pill content until very recently. I started to do some research just to see what's out there in the community. And I think obviously there's a lot more extreme stuff out there. I mean, there's like very, very extreme, just like crazy takes in the red pill community. And then there's more guys I think that are a little bit more balanced, a little bit more grounded in certain things. It just depends on where you get your information. But in terms of the community itself, as like guys that are commenting, that are posting, I've seen some crazy comments from dudes saying things like, they literally view women as the enemy, and they look at women like they're these evil, twisted creatures that want to screw men over left and right and always assert their narratives and their agendas. And I was watching this one yesterday, and she's like a pretty popular podcaster. She invites other male creators to come and talk to her. I think it's called Standout TV or something like that. I don't know if you've seen any episodes. Um, but she like has guys come on and they'll kind of like have a date, but it's really just like she's asking them questions and they go
Oh,
go
I
back
know
and
that.
forth.
Wasn't Andrew Tate on there?
He was, yeah,
Is
yeah.
that yeah, okay, I know that. I didn't know that was a podcast.
I think so. I think it is. She has like different episodes and she just invites a bunch of different creators on there.
Okay.
And one of the recent ones that she did was this dude who was like really young. He was like in his 20s. I think he just turned 20. So he was very, very young, very clearly very much in like the red pill mindset still. Even though he might not admit that he's there. So he was giving all these different points and saying these things, and all the comments were just bashing this girl. And she didn't really do any. I mean, there was some things that she said that I didn't agree with, but a lot of the comments are like, "Oh, she's a woman, she's dumb," like blah blah blah, saying all these things. I was like, "Bro, like calm down." Like clearly the girl's she believes what she believes, but they made the guy seem like he was this all knowledgeable, like amazing dude. Like they were literally comparing him to Andrew Tate. And I was like, nah. I'm like, I'll have to send it to you after after we get done here. But the things that this guy was saying, I was like, dude, he's not as sophisticated as Tate. He doesn't have as much nuance as Tate. Like, please don't compare him and don't look at guys like that as a role model because they're not, and they're not actually guys that have your best interest in heart. One of the things that he says, that a lot of people in the red pill say that I have such a problem with, such a point of contention with is the cheating thing. They'll say, I'm sure you've heard this before too, where they say it's not okay for a woman to cheat on a man because she, gets emotionally invested and it's hard for her to cheat on another person because she has to build some emotional investment into somebody else, which I do agree with. I think it's harder for women to cheat, but then they go around and say, well, it's okay for guys to cheat because we're not emotionally attached. We just have that logic. Because we can have sex with a girl and not care about her and then go back to our wives or girlfriends or whatever. And that's okay. And that's not considered cheating because, you're still being loyal to one person, but like a high value guy doesn't need to just be with one girl. I've heard this so many different times. So I'd love to get your take on that before I kind of give my thoughts. What do you think about that sentiment of like women, if they cheat, it's like the worst thing in the world, but guys cheating, especially if a high value guy who has a lot of status, that's okay because he can get away with it.
Great question. So 3 points. First of all, people have to understand that Andrew Tate uses or says things he doesn't necessarily mean. He's an
Yeah.
actor,
Yeah.
and he says a lot of stupid things to get people
Get
to
a
comment
reaction.
and to
Hmm.
engage. Like stuff like I'm sure you saw the videos him talking about not giving some guy what is it called CD or something like that. The breath, I'm not sure what it's called in English.
CPR.
CPR, correct. And he
Yeah, I
was
think I've
like,
seen
no, I
it.
don't do it. I'm not gay. Or you drink sparkling water. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You don't drink sparkling water. Like,
Right.
that's him playing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe he is a guy who believes that it's okay to cheat,
Mm-hmm.
but from what I think or what I saw from his behavior and how he is actually acting or treating women he is dating, I don't think that he actually means it.
Yeah, I don't
Because
think
I
so either.
think he's not in a relationship for whatever reasons, for many reasons. He has enough reasons not to be in a relationship right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe when he's in a relationship that he will be loyal.
Yeah.
And primarily, which is the second point, because he recently converted into Islam. And
I saw
religious
that.
people, like I'm not sure how it is with Islam, but I'm not a Christian, but I believe in God and I do believe in the principles. And I'm not sure what the quote is exactly, but it basically says if you commit adultery with a woman just by sexualizing, just in your imagination, thinking about it, you
Mm.
already committed adultery. And if you do, you should
Mm.
stab out your eye and throw it away before you get into hell. I'm not sure what exactly, but I'm sure you heard it. Like if you
Sure.
want, I can get it up quickly
Yeah.
because I constantly quote it because I love it.
I think I've heard that before, actually.
You didn't.
No, I think I've heard it somewhere before.
Okay, so there it is. You shall not commit adultery, but I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart.
Hmm.
If your right eye causes you to sin, plug it out and cast it from you, for it is more profitable for you that one of your member perish than your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. I love it.
Wow.
It's from Matthew 5:27 to 32. And I firmly
Damn.
believe it. And I would, like, I'm of the opinion that if more people would believe in those, like in the Bible or whatever religion you choose, we would
Hmm.
have significantly less problems.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's it's almost like
Because
it.
there is no
Go ahead.
virtue in not being loyal. We just had a lag, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, okay. What did you say?
No, you were about to say something, and I think I cut you off.
I said that there's no virtue in not being loyal.
Right.
Not at all.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. I think again, it comes back to what we were saying before, like being the kind of person you want to attract. So if you always want to cheat and openly want to cheat with people and like say that that's okay for you, but you're not okay with women doing that, well, it's eventually going to come to bite you in the ass. You're going to date a woman who's going to cheat on you, and you're going to be like, well, why did this happen? And it's because of your actions. You've done this so many times that just attracts that kind of person, I think. Um, so I find it very interesting that guys that not even every guy thinks. I don't think every guy thinks that, but a lot of the content creators do push that narrative. And I wonder almost where it comes from. Is it from just like an ego thing? Is it just the fact that they think, you know, that they're, the woman doesn't really matter in terms of the relationship, or I don't know what exactly it is. But I just never really agree with that. I think generally if you're devoted to somebody, you're committed to someone, then you don't go outside of that relationship. I mean, if you do, then you shouldn't be in a relationship. I think people really distort what boundaries are if you're in something committed, if you're with somebody long term, and what people say is true. Like obviously guys, we're always going to have this drive to like seek variety or we're going to have horniness. I mean, we're men. It's like literally in our DNA to always want to spread our seed. So like biologically, what he's saying and what other creators are saying is true, But the key is, what do you do when you have all the abundance in the world? Do you just do whatever the fuck you want and have no responsibilities? Or do you limit yourself? Not limit yourself, but do you have control? I think at the end of the day, it comes down to self-control, being disciplined, being able to tell yourself, okay, this girl's really hot, but I'm not going to do anything with her because I already have a girlfriend at home. I'm committed to her. I made that decision. I'm devoted. I'm not even going to go outside of that because it's not worth it at the end. It's not because you're thinking with you're coming from a very low vibrational place because you're just looking at her for sex, just looking at her for like a physical flesh type of thing, which doesn't lead to anything anyway. So yeah, I think it's not a good place to be. Um, I think guys, if they practice more sexual discipline, and that's why NoFap is so popular. Things like semen retention is so popular because it teaches you, literally teaches you how to be okay with not having a lot of sex in your life, not having women constantly giving you validation, whatever it is, and it allows you to kind of be okay being a man who's on his path, on his purpose, following better things, being fulfilled, and then eventually when a woman does come into your life, you're not like crazy, like overly horny or overly like aggressive towards her. You can come from a grounded place. Um, and yeah, in terms of loyalty, if you want loyalty, you have to show loyalty.
Absolutely. And glad that you did say that about being low vibrational,
Yeah.
because I think that's the crucial point. You know, I'm a spiritual person. We talked yesterday. You're a very spiritual person,
Hmm.
and it is spiritual annihilation.
Yeah.
You just when you sleep with women, like I firmly believe in life force. That's why semen retention and nofap.
Yep.
Like you are wasting your life force. You are acting from a low vibrational standpoint. And the goal is for me, we talked about this yesterday as well. Like the goal of life is achievement and growth. And
Yeah.
growth also means spiritual pursuing sex. When you're pursuing casual relationships, you are ego driven, and
Hmm.
that cannot end up in fulfillment. It
No.
cannot.
Mm-mm. It rarely does. It rarely does. And having that, I kind of experienced that at one point in my life where I was kind of like playing the field a little bit, talking to like multiple girls at once, trying to really like just get up just more experience in dating, which I think is, and this is an interesting point, I think too. I think every guy needs to at least know what that's like in terms of having experience, having abundance, because I'm not saying you have to have sex with everybody and be like be a man whore or anything, but I do think that every guy needs to understand what it is like to have women attracted to them, know how to communicate, know how to lead, know how to be confident around women, how to speak to women, how to flirt. Um, you do need that experience. It's very valuable. But I think once you get to a certain point and you move past that and you realize, damn, there's more to life than just getting girls and getting laid and all this different stuff. You're gonna want more. You're gonna want something deeper like purpose. You're gonna want something deeper like building really real relationships, real communities, real things in life that are much more impactful to your life and then obviously to people that are around you as well. Um, so I think every guy has a stage where he does need to go through some type of growth in terms of understanding himself, understanding how women are, how they interact with him, what his experience is in real life. Um, but I think you shouldn't stay there. I think a lot of guys end up staying at that point where they're just like, okay, women, women, women all day long. And if you want to live that lifestyle, that's your choice. But do understand that there are cons to that life as well. It's not all like sunflowers and or sunshine and rainbows and great things like a lot of these creators make it sound like. There's a lot of things that come with it. So just understand that there are trade-offs to that as well. Um, Mainly because I was talking to some guy recently and he kind of was living that life for a while. He kind of lived the playboy lifestyle where he was casually dating different women. Um, they were kind of all doing their own thing, and he wasn't lying to them at all in any means, but he was seeing multiple women at once. And there came a woman who he recently was talking to, and she wanted to get serious with him, and he didn't want to. He wanted to stay casual. And what ended up happening was she ended up wanting to end the relationship because she's like, "Well, I actually want to get serious," and he clearly didn't, and he kind of messed things up. So she left him, and now he wanted to like get back with her because he realized that was a good relationship, a good dynamic, and she doesn't want anything to do with him now because he's still busy in that hooking up lifestyle and just not really taking things seriously. So there are a lot of negatives that come from living that life. And I think it's important for guys to understand that, if you choose to do that, understand what comes with it as well.
And the cost is primarily a lot of energy wasted, if we're honest.
Definitely.
Like, let's be honest, dating multiple women is very costly.
Yeah.
It takes you a lot of money because supposing you're a man, you take, red pillars usually take that responsibility of paying for the dates and stuff like that, the provisioning. They
Hmm.
accept this role and they pay for the dates.
Yep.
So dating multiple women will be extremely expensive. And of course,
Yep.
extremely time. You need to invest a lot of time because let's say you're dating
You do.
three women. Like, how are you managing it? One woman, you spend one day, let's say one evening with her, and then you have two other women. Then you need two extra evenings,
Yep.
and that's a lot of time. And
Hmm.
everybody knows this. Like, I'm in a relationship, and I'm not saying that it's not worth something or that it's too much of a sacrifice because relationships are beautiful, right? And
Hmm.
I believe that women can be an amplifier for men,
100%.
but it is a sacrifice. It is a time investment, it is financial investment, and it is emotional investment because you can be as tough and as alpha as you want to be, but when there is a problem in the relationship, and there will be a problem, I'm a
Hmm.
very mature guy. My girlfriend is very mature, but you will always have some sort of conflict, and
Yep.
it's just on your mind, and it just reduces your performance a little bit
Hmm.
at times, of course, not all the time, but that's something you need to consider. And handling three women
Yep.
who are her casually, maybe a lot of drama, maybe a lot of emotional turmoil, a lot of financial investment, a lot of time investment, and I seriously don't see a benefit because what do you get from it? I invested and I get something in return from her, not just sex, because that's superficial, that's pretty much useless. Like, sex
Hmm.
is everywhere.
Yep.
But what you get out of a relationship is a woman caring for you, nurturing you, being there for you, doing tasks for you, like being a support on your mission.
Hmm.
And that's invaluable.
Yeah.
You have a return of investment, but casually dating women, I don't see a return of investment. Yeah, sure, you delegate tasks to them as well, but they will not be as a help on your mission as your wife, as your woman, as your girlfriends.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's interesting you tied it back to that value exchange because like, yeah, when you're living that life of casual hookups and doing that whole hookup culture, what are you really getting in return? Maybe, yeah, maybe get some experience, maybe you get some just good memories to tell your friends and like things to look back on, but you're not really getting as much energy I think as you're putting in because to go out with a woman, to pay for the date, to take her back to your place, to spend all that time together, that's a lot of investment on your end as the guy. Um, and having done that, like I've had experiences where a couple years ago, even I think maybe even last year, like early, even more recently, where I had dates set up be Friday, Saturday, Sunday with literally three different girls. And it wasn't like we were dating consistently. It was like first few dates with these women. And I remember having to do this every day for like not every day, but every week with different girls that I was meeting on dating apps. And it's just like after I was done, it's like holy crap, I'm just so drained because it takes a ton out of you. Even if you don't end up hooking up with them or anything, if you're just like literally just being there, spending that time with. three different people with girls, all different personalities, all different stories. You have to remember their names. You have to remember things about them. You have to keep the conversation going. It can be very taxing. And eventually that it just gets boring and it gets repetitive because a lot of the times women, not all women, but a lot of the women these days, majority of young women are they're not that deep. They're lacking a lot of depth. So you find, especially in the dating market now, it's very saturated with women that um kind of fit the narrative of like the modern, the modern woman. They don't have much depth. They don't have much to them. So if you go on a bunch of dates, it's gonna be like you're going out with the same girl every time because there's not much difference between a lot of them. Which is another thing too. It's like being aware of what kind of women you're attracting and who you ideally want to attract and going after them, not the ones that you're just trying to settle for because, you're lonely or you haven't been on a date in a while.
Absolutely. And you said dating apps, right? And what do you
Yeah.
think of dating apps? Do you suggest men use dating apps because you did yourself? Like I used them myself as well.
Right.
But what's your perspective on it now?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So here's my thing with dating apps. I think I read a statistic the other day. It said 67% of the people on dating apps are men. So meaning like what's that? 33% are women or 30 couple like 30% something are women, which means that number one, it's already completely fucked in terms of your ratio and your chances because there's a lot more guys on there than girls. So women are getting a hell of a lot more opportunities than men are generally anyway. Like they're matching like 50 guys at a time. Some guys they'll be lucky to get a couple matches during the week. So that's one obstacle. I'm not saying it's impossible to overcome. You can. I think what I did was you got to get really good pictures. You got to get a really good bio. Make sure you seem like you're a good dude. Show your lifestyle essentially in your pictures. Kind of paint a picture or paint a story in your pictures. So that's one way to bypass that. But even then, once you have a good profile, you do have to get them off the app, get their phone number, try to set up the date. There's quite a few steps to doing it. Now it's more easy and convenient than I think meeting women in real life. So if you are a busy guy, and you're doing a lot of things, it's not the worst thing in the world to do. But in my experience, I've never really met a girl that fits the mold of woman that I truly want to be with on a dating app. So there is that. There is kind of that equation as well. If you're looking for a certain type of chick, most likely she's not probably on dating apps. Now she might be. I'm not saying it's impossible to find a good relationship from dating apps. I've seen it happen. Um, Me personally, it's never happened the way I wanted it to. Actually, I met my last girlfriend from a dating app, and we just weren't really aligned. We didn't really have, similar beliefs and like outlooks on life. That being said, it was a good relationship, but there was just a lot of stuff that I didn't really want in a long-term relationship. So my experience is I've had a ton of dates. I've had a ton of women that I've taken out from dating apps, but in the long term, especially with what I'm trying to do now, like seeing like a legitimate girlfriend long term to be with like somebody to help build with, to help grow with, not the most ideal place. Um, so there's other options for guys. I'd say if you have no experience with dating, try it out. It's not the worst thing in the world, but personally, I think after a while you kind of get bored of it and realize, man, there's a lot of the girls on there are pretty much the same, and there's not a lot of a variety. There's not a lot of variety. At least that's been my experience.
I'd like to add two things because you mentioned, of course, the type of woman you are likely to meet on dating apps.
Right.
And I have the saying that when you date a girl from Tinder, that's what you get. a girl using Tinder. It's the
Yeah.
same with when you go to the party, when you go to parties or clubs to look for a woman, that's what you get.
Yeah,
A woman who chills at clubs and parties.
pretty much.
And the other thing is that most men are ending up wasting a lot of time. They keep swiping and swiping and swiping and
Mm,
literally put in hours per day
yeah.
just swiping because what is it? It's a dopamine, right? It's instant
Yeah.
dopamine. Oh, you
Yep.
see another hot chick. Yeah, like, oh, you see another hot chick. Yeah, like, but what
Hmm.
is happening? How many dates are you getting?
Right.
And especially, how are those dates? What is your intention? Like, I firmly believe that like at least Tinder. I'm not sure too sure about other dating apps. I'm
Hmm.
sure there are dating platforms. For example, we in Austria we have a dating platform for very highly intelligent people. Of
Hmm.
course, those people are looking for something else. But on Tinder or let's say Bumble or however that is called, that is for casual sex. Like that is
Yeah.
casual hookups. You won't be like you won't be finding a traditional woman on those apps.
No. No, most likely you're not. Like I said, there's exceptions. There's very, very, very few exceptions, but for the most part, it's literally like walking into a bar. It's like you said, like you'll see that same type of girl. The ones that always go to the bars every weekend, that's the kind of girl you see. Well, that's probably the girl, kind of girl she is. Like she's just living that lifestyle. Same thing with Tinder. If you see a girl on Tinder and she has all these like pictures of her like half naked and all these different things, most likely she's probably doing that to a bunch of guys. Like she has a bunch of matches and she's been on dating apps for a while. So there's just things you need to look out for. Um, like I said, it's not the most ideal place I think to meet people, but you can get some experience. You can definitely get some dates out of it if you know how to craft your profile the right way. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, is being on Tinder, is being on a dating app, is that the ideal place I'm going to meet the kind of girl I want to attract? And I think once you can answer that question, you can make the best decision, moving forward. So, um, yeah, I think it's just kind of stages in a guy's life, kind of like we were talking about before. Um, Getting the experience, but then deciding, is this something I want to do long term?
Absolutely. I've been there, done that myself, you know. Like
Yeah.
it's not that I'm the perfect traditional religious guy who never did anything casual. As we
Yeah.
said, I was in the Red Bull community myself. So I
Hmm.
did a lot of casual dating. I was spending a lot of time on dating apps, especially
Yep.
Tinder. But at some point it gets boring. You know,
Hmm.
the thing is, guys are so obsessed with women, and I was so obsessed
Yeah.
myself because you don't get it. And we always want what we can't have, right? So
Yep.
you're bad with women, you don't get dates, you get rejected, and then you crave it. You see it like the holy grail, and you just want it. You want it really bad. But as soon as you got the drill, like as soon as you get dates like that, as soon as hooking up or pulling women isn't hard anymore, isn't a challenge, it loses its importance.
Yeah.
Like if you're a man of value and you're confident because you're on your purpose, you build yourself as a man, it becomes easy, it becomes natural. Like you just
Hmm.
have that, let's call it swagger. You just
Yeah.
you just go up to approach her and are secure in yourself. You know what you have to offer, you know what you're looking for, and it's easy.
Hmm.
And then it gets boring
Yeah.
for most guys.
Hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point. I think what's interesting about that is even I've heard guys in the red pill talk about this as well. Like they call it choosing signals. When a girl, when she starts noticing you, she's looking at you, or she's like playing with her hair, she's like getting close to you, things like that. That stuff starts happening when you're a guy that literally is on his purpose and like is being in his masculine and doing the things that he wants to do. He's carrying himself in the correct way. Um, because a lot of guys look for like the perfect line or the thing to say, or what technique or strategy can I do to attract this girl? Like how do I approach girls in the gym, et cetera, et cetera. And the very simple answer to that is if you're a guy who's literally like living his best life and doing his thing, doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you approach her. I mean, there's obviously like caveats to that, but if you're that dude, she'll see you as that dude. It's just a matter of like being a guy who has presence, being a guy who has that authority. Like I've experienced in my life where um I've walked into like me and my friends would go out to a bar or something, and I'm not a huge drinker, so I don't really go out and drink a bunch anymore. But when we used to go out, I wouldn't even really have that many drinks. I'd have like maybe one to sip on just casually. We'd have women approach us. Wouldn't have to do much. I wouldn't have to go out of my way to make approaches and like to really like fiend for a woman's attention. They would notice us when we walked in. Now, some guys would make the excuse, oh, well, it's because you're well groomed, you dress well, you're good looking, blah, blah, blah. That's a part of it.
Yes. Also, yeah, of course.
That's a part of it for sure. I mean, you shouldn't neglect that. But most of it is the energy. I think a lot of it is just the way that you carry yourself and the fact that I'm not there to approach women and meet all these girls and like sleep with women. I don't I could care less if I meet a girl that night or not. But because I'm so carefree and because I hold myself well and I know exactly, like you said, I know what I offer, I know who I am, I know the value that I have. These women see that and they approach me because I'm literally just on my path. So that I think is interesting because guys all the time here's the tricky thing about it because there's some people that think that you should never approach women, and then there's some people that say approach women all the time, and they just do that all the time. I think it's a mix of both. Um, I think you can approach. I don't think there's anything wrong with approaching women, but as long as you're doing it from the right place, like if you're doing it because you're like, oh, I have to make 20 approaches today, you're doing it from your ego, then no, like that's never going to lead to anything. But let's say you're at the gym, for example, you're on your path, you're there to just lift, to train, you don't have any agenda. If you see a beautiful girl like in the like after she's done with her set and she's right next to you and she keeps looking at you, then yeah, like walk up to her and say what's up. Say, hey, I see you in here all the time. What's your name? There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you have to be on your path. And I think that is the key. If you're off your path or women distract you from what you're doing, then it's going to come off needy. It's the dynamic is not going to be right. But as long as you're doing what you want to do as a man, you're following your steps and you don't have any kind of like number that you're trying to hit or some quota of like how many girls you're trying to approach, then it's okay. But I think once you get to that point and you develop yourself, you're gonna notice a lot of women will start approaching you or at least giving you signals that like, hey, like come talk to me. I find you attractive. You're gonna get a lot more of that.
Absolutely. And part of it is because you said people were basically judging you for, yeah, well, that's because
Yeah.
it's well, you're well groomed. Yes,
Yep.
I care about myself. I respect myself as a man. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I take care of myself. That's why I take care of my body. You um are reflecting energy.
Yeah.
And if you're looking like that dude, like something greasy, like t-shirt, the wife beater t-shirt, for example,
Yeah.
like that's not attractive. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a crucial part. And
Mm-hmm.
you said, which I like, that you shouldn't go somewhere with the intention of meeting women. Like
Yeah.
you said, you had women approaching you because you were just having a great time with your pals.
That's it.
And that's the key point. Many men go to bars and clubs with the intention, hey, I have to sleep with a woman today. What
Yep.
does that do? They're not being outcome independent. What does that
Mm-hmm.
do? They're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. What does that do?
Yep.
Leading them to be insecure and not
Yep.
like be chilled and be themselves. They put too much value on pulling a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and that is wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the same with approaching choosel signals or not. It doesn't matter. Follow your intention.
Mm-hmm.
Like my girlfriend was a cold approach in the gym. I was like, hey, she just caught my attention, right? And I'm
Yeah.
usually a guy. I'm focused on my workout. I don't care. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
tunnel vision. I don't speak a lot in the gym. But I
Yep.
saw her and I was like, hey, I just have to approach her, right? I like her. I like how she
Mm-hmm.
looks. I like how she carries herself, how she moves, right? You can see that like elegant movements and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And her body language was very positive. And I was like, yeah, well, she didn't give me any choosing signals, but I didn't care. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just your intention. Like,
Yep.
don't go somewhere, hey, I have to get 20 numbers today.
Yep.
Go somewhere because you want to go there. Like men always ask me, and I'm sure they also ask you, where do I need to go to meet women?
Yeah.
Open your eyes, bro. They
Anywhere.
are everywhere. They're at the gas station, they're at the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store, they're at the gym, they're on the streets. It doesn't matter where you go, they're
Mm-hmm.
women. And
Yeah.
it's not like you have a place where high quality women are. Like it's not that they have a sitcom and or a book club where they all sit, whole high quality women waiting for you to approach them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just follow your intention. Just do what you love to do, and there will be women. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to approach, approach. That's
Yep.
all the magic.
It's really that simple. I mean, I've said guys like if you're looking at a girl and you're looking at her twice, you're attracted. So either
Absolutely.
make the decision right then and there. Either approach her or move on with your day and don't let that affect you anymore. Like stop looking at her. Like if you're gonna do that, make the approach. And if you're not, just choose to move on and like because I've we've all done that too, where we keep looking at a girl and it distracts us. We become like really like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Like look at her, like holy crap. Everybody does that. Um, but you got to just kind of make that decision right then and there. Like give yourself that gut check. Either I'm walking up to her or I'm gonna carry on with my day and do my thing. Um, so you just kind of have to be decisive in that moment. And I've had real life examples of that happen to me where um I've seen both sides of that exact spectrum that we're talking about, where guys come from the mindset of like, I need to approach girls, I need to have sex, I need to do this, I need to do that. I used to hang out with a guy in my group who would do that exact thing. And real quick story, when I was out, I think it was last year we were hanging out with them. We would go to this bar and immediately as soon as we get there, he starts looking at any girl in the place. Like he's scoping them out, he's like trying to like see if there's pretty women there. And then he would talk to us. He'd say, "Oh, dude, we gotta talk to some girls today, man. We gotta see who's here." And I'm the whole time like I'm thinking I could care less. I'm not really like that active in terms of who's there. I mean, I'm obviously looking around to see who's in the area, who's in the environment, but I'm not thinking, okay, there needs to be girls here for me to have a good time. I don't care either way. So what ended up happening was a few girls came into the bar later on. We were hanging out. They came up to us, and one of the girls actually told me about this guy. He said, "Do you know this guy?" I said, "Yeah, he's cool, he's in our group, whatever." And this is the thing about energy that I think people don't really understand. She was like, "He seems kind of scary." And she told this to me. I was like, "That's interesting." I was like, "Why do you think he's scary?" She's like, "I don't know. He just seems like scary, like weird." She was basically saying he seemed like a creep. And the reason she said that was because he was always operating from the mindset of like, I'm the ugly guy in the group. I don't have experience with women. I suck with women. These guys are good. I suck. I'm the problem. So he would try so hard to impress them. He'd be on stage trying to dance, like making himself look like a fool, like a clown, just to make them interested in him. So he tried so hard, and women know this. They have that radar when they can tell a guy is trying very hard to get my attention, and they don't like that. So wrapping up by the end of the night, we were about to go home. I think they ended up going to another bar or something like that, or we ended up splitting up with them. And the guy was so disappointed. He was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "Guys, we should have been with those girls. Like, we didn't make a move, blah, blah, blah." And I'm just like, dude, I'm so unattached that like, I don't care. Like you're that, you're that butthurt about a couple random girls you'll never see again. And he said something that I was like really, really just like thrown off by. He was like, "Aren't you guys mad?" He's like, "Aren't you guys upset that you're not having sex tonight, that you're not like getting laid or hooking up?" I was like, he asked that to me. I said, "Dude, I don't care if I have sex. Like that's the difference between me and you. I don't care if I go out and not have sex. I still have a good time. I don't need to enjoy myself. And he immediately like backtracked. He's like, oh, I'm not saying blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, this I know where your head's at. And it's just the difference between guys that are, they're so focused on women to the point of that's like the only thing they care about, and guys that are focused on their path and their friends, because we were there with a group of friends and they're just having a good time. Women notice that and they approach us. Just a massive difference in terms of like energy, mindset, and honestly how he feels about himself, because he thinks he's not worth it, because he thinks he feels like he's not a valuable guy in a woman's eyes. That's what he's going to show in real life. It's going to manifest.
Absolutely. As you said, women can see that. Do you reflect that energy? They have a sense for this, right? And
Yep.
it's funny because I could literally see myself in that story you were telling. I
Yeah.
was that guy. I was that guy being on the
Yep.
party, approaching woman after woman, and you will be reflecting that needy energy, which
Yep.
automatically repulses women. And the
Mm-hmm.
moment I stopped caring, which is a very famous quote, the
Yeah.
moment you stop caring, she starts chasing, right?
I literally just made a
And
video about that.
it is technically what,
Yep.
like, people get this mixed up again. They think, oh, okay, if I stop caring, that bitch isn't worth shit. I'm
Right.
just gonna
Right.
use her. No, that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop putting so much value on it and making your self-confidence and your self-worth
Yep.
dependent on it, then you get successful,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're not reflecting that needy, repulsive energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what guys miss is they think that I need to stop caring, as in treat women badly, shame them, this and that. That's not at all what that advice means. That advice literally means exactly what you said, like just valuing yourself more than you value attention from women and what they're giving you. That's it. You're not being a dick, you're not being
Absolutely.
abusive, mean or whatever. You're still being a gentleman. You're still treating women well. You're just not you just don't care as much whether she likes you or not. You don't care whether she gives you that attention or validation because you already have your own validation. You already have that in yourself. And that is, when guys get to that place, I think you'll find that your whole dating life can transform overnight.
Absolutely. It will shift.
100%. Well, dude, I think we can probably wrap it up here. It's a nice little segue into the last bit there, man. I could talk about this stuff for another hour and a half or more.
Absolutely.
I'm
Like,
sure you can too.
I thought that to myself. Like I told you, I was talking to David for 3 hours. We're
Yeah,
in it 1.5 hours as well. We were saying, okay, about an hour. Now we're here sitting there 1.5 hours nonstop, not
I
even a
know.
break. So yes, I'm thankful for it. Like,
Hmm.
that's great, just
Hmm.
exchanging yourself,
Yep.
and it provides a lot of value, which is also important. I think today was great, really
Hmm.
great. And as you said, we could carry on for a very long time.
Yeah. No, man, I could easily talk for another hour or so, and I just know some guys like probably tapping out before they even get to this point. Like an hour and a half is a pretty long video, but
Absolutely.
if you do watch all the way to where we're talking right now, I think you'll find a ton of value and good information out there that we discussed a lot, man. We talked about just like energies, red pill ideologies. We talked about masculinity as a whole. We talked about codependency, relationships. I mean, there's just so much that we said. So like I always say, go back, watch this a few times, pick out your favorite parts, study this stuff, apply this information, because that's the only way you'll really see results is if you go and start living this and not just consuming the information, but producing that into something tangible. So, I just want to say I appreciate you for coming on here, man. I think this was a awesome conversation. I'd love to maybe in the future have you on again at some point to do some other type of collab. So I think at the end of the day, it's a really good information for guys. And like you said, there's a ton of value that we just kind of shared here. So I hope guys can take this and actually run with it.
Absolutely. Appreciate it very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. As you said, tons of value in there. Gentlemen, take this seriously. As Tino said, watch it over and over again. Don't
Mhm.
just mindlessly consume. It's the same with reading books.
Yeah.
Like you fall into the trap, oh, read that book, read that book. Oh, I have to read one book per month or whatever the number is.
Hmm.
No, just take your time digesting the content because otherwise you're just mentally masturbating.
Yep.
Like that episode has a lot of value, and 1.5 hours is hard to digest. So
Mhm.
kudos to you if you stick to the end. And yeah, I'm looking forward, definitely doing it in the future again. We can have another 1 hour podcast, no problem, I believe. So thank you very much for inviting me in. It was a great episode, and you make the ending.
Yeah, man. 100%. I agree. And I'm glad you came on, man. If people want to look more into your content and kind of see what you got going on, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, which is my main page,
Mm.
under the nickname Holistic Manhood. You can find me anywhere else under that nickname as well, but Instagram is my main page. I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm even on LinkedIn. So you can find me anywhere, but social, like Instagram, is probably the best way to get into contact with me. And
Gotcha.
just in case, because we said like you're gonna share it on YouTube and Instagram, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna share it on my podcast, where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah. If you type in the sophisticated man, that's the sophisticated man, just not one word, just all spaced out. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Sweet. So yeah, guys, if that was pretty much it for me and Manuel. Again, I definitely appreciate him coming on. This was an awesome conversation. Definitely love to do it again sometime. If you made it all the way to the end, give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe down below if you're new. I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are on the discussion that we had here. I'll leave all of his links down below if you want to find them. Obviously, for me, you know where my stuff is. You want to work with me personally, I have coaching links down below. All my social media is down below as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. We're going to wrap up here and get going, but hope you all have an awesome rest of the week. We'll talk to you very soon and see you guys in the next video. Peace.